Rock and roll. All right, let's do it.
I just hit the button. It's preparing the live stream.
Sweet. And I got share capacity, so we're good to go. All right, cool.
Excellent. Here we go. All right, good morning and welcome to the 2021 Lecture and Masterclass series. We have part 2 of a 3-part talk with DJ Taz Rashid today. Hey Taz, good morning.
Tim, good morning. How are you? I'm doing good.
Doing great.
It's good to be back. All right. Well, yeah, this is class 2, and I had a really amazing time last week, just sharing a little bit about my journey, how I got kind of out of the corporate scene and into this path. And today we're going to go into a little bit more of the business aspect around how I started booking shows, and how I started touring. And there's obviously a process for that I can look back now and see, wow, these things happened, and that's how this thing led me to this experience, which led me to this. And so we'll kind of re-engineer some of that, and I'll just really share with you how I started touring all over the world. And I was doing somewhere around I don't even know, like 80 to 100 shows per year around the US, like North America, Europe, and Asia. And then even last year, 2020, with COVID happening, I was able to do over 140 online events, and we'll share about how I got into that. So I want to share with you what's worked for me. I have a very unique audience which I work with, which is health, wellness, fitness, meditation, but they all love music. Music is a part of everything that they're doing, and when I'm especially part of their events and performances, music is obviously part of it. So even if you're not familiar with that world, it doesn't really matter, because what I'm going to be sharing with you, you can take the ideas behind it and apply it towards whatever field that you're involved with. Whether it's a specific niche audience, or is it niche or niche? I don't know. One of the specific audience, or community, or even the type of work that you're looking to get into, whether you're going to be a musician or some sort of a tech producer, working with sound. It doesn't matter. You can take these elements and put it into use. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. I'll show some video here and there. So I like to think I'm good with Zoom, but sometimes things come up. So let's start with the PowerPoint, which is right here. Let's see. And before that, I need to share my screen. See, there you go. I'm going to go ahead and share screen, desktop 2, and then I'm going to share. Tim, you can hear me okay and everything? Things are coming through?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so you guys should be seeing my screen now. So, okay, cool. Looks like you guys can see my screen. So that's me at a Wanderlust event. And I'll show a lot of pictures from the events that Tim and I have been part of. Tim's been part of Wanderlust festivals for many years before I came on board. But I came on board to this festival called Wanderlust around 2014, 15. So I'll show some pictures from that. So the way we want to get started is I want to kind of show a few just images of some of the events. These are older pictures, but it doesn't matter. Like it'll give you, these are like some dance parties that I would DJ, whether at festivals, some yoga classes where people would be doing yoga. I'd be playing music, playing at different outdoor festivals like this. This is in San Diego. So, I've played many different venues. So like audiences of 5 people up to 6,000, 7,000 people, so I've seen a lot of different types of energy, types of situations. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit. I'll also today get into a little bit about my Spotify, because in the description, we talked about how I did a lot of events without a label and a booking agency, which is all true. I've never worked with a label. I sometimes now work with labels for certain releases here and there, but I own 98% of my music. and some of the labels that are involved with share ownership and things like that. But as far as Spotify, things like that, we'll kind of talk a little bit about that, because that has been a big part of my income coming in addition to live performances. So we'll talk about both of those elements. So Spotify, this is my Spotify page, followers, and right now around like 220, about around 200, somewhere around 220,000 monthly listeners, which is a decent, really decent number for someone like me, playing music in the yoga, meditation, and fitness industry. People really love the music that I've been creating. Which has been nice is that I just looked at these numbers, like, around 28 million streams since, you can see, around 2015 when I started putting music out, and you can see how it's been kind of like steadily going up, which has been really cool. And over time, like, it adds up. All the hard work that goes into the music, if you're producing music, it will add up over time. You will see the income, but there are certain things you definitely need to be doing along that process to help build the fan base, people that are supporting you, people actually listening to you. So how did these things kind of happen? Well, one of the main ways that happen is by performances, and by, touring. So, from 2016 till 2019, I was heavily touring all over, like I was saying, all over North America, and Asia, and Europe. And, all this was self-booked. So people reached out to me, and they booked me directly. So I was able to keep 100%. Anytime you work, to keep in mind, anytime you work with a booking agency or a tour manager, or any kind of booking situation, they're going to take a cut, and that's how it usually works, unless you're paying them like a monthly fee or something like that. If you're working with any kind of person or institution, they're going to take either 15% or 20% or more or less, or whatever you've worked out with them. But so if you're making $1,000 from a gig, you got to hand over 200, 300, or whatever amount to the other party. So if you're self-booking, one of the great things you will know that you will keep 100% of that, based on whatever, if you have to pay for travel or not, or if that's included. So that's one thing to consider. So I'm really happy to be able to say that, yes, like, these gigs I did, like, I booked myself and I was able to keep 100%, which is fantastic. I'm going to show a quick little video from an event that I did in Chicago with Tim's group. And I actually put this together from some of the footage that my camera person caught. It'll give you an idea of what one of these yoga one day kind of music festivals kind of looked like and felt like. So, because many of you may have never been to one of these, so just check it out. Hopefully the sound goes through. So it gives you a quick little 1 minute glimpse on like a typical day, when it's not raining. We had a beautiful sunny day in Chicago, and I think that was 2018. I can't really remember.
17 or 18.
17 or 18, yeah. And we were blessed with the sun. And when it's sunny and nice in Chicago, it is just gorgeous and amazing. But when it's rainy and cold, it is nasty. And we've experienced that as well. So
all of the above,
right? So that is what I was part of for 5-6 years, events like that where people would gather, they would practice in wellness and yoga and meditation and dancing, and music was a huge part of it. You saw images of me DJing while the teacher was teaching. So, how did I kind of get to that level of doing those kinds of events? I mean, I'll tell you right now, it did not start like that. So I'll kind of share a little bit about how that happened. So, this, I love this quote: "Do or do not, there is no try." Like when I left the corporate scene around 2011, I just made a conscious decision that, hey, like I'm gonna just like teach myself how to DJ. Um, I'm gonna, be grateful for what I have, in my life. And I realized like life is relationship. If anyone says like, what is life? Like everything in your life, if you really think about it, is you have a relationship, whether you realize it or not, with everyone and everything around you. How that relationship is really kind of up to you and how you perceive that. So one of the great things I started realizing right off the bat is like, wow, like every person I meet, I have some sort of a relationship with that person, whether it's a really deep relationship or a surface relationship or positive or negative or whatever that may be. How can I like create value maybe from that relationship if I want to? If I meet someone, like say for like Tim, for example, when I met him, I'm like, wow, this guy's Tim is really cool and awesome. But he was also like one of the directors of sound and production of Wanderlust. I'm like, hey, this is the kind of guy I want to be friends with, right? He's in charge. He's really cool. I'm playing music. Like I want to get to know him. And over the years, we became friends at these events, and we would see each other. And that's not always the case with every situation. There's a lot of artists out there that have, whether it's an ego or like I'm so and so and whatever. So there's different approaches you can take as you are on your journey, and how you work with people, how you treat people. What is your attitude? That is one of the only things I can tell you right now. How is your attitude while you're in the game? Are you in an attitude of gratitude, or are you kind of in an attitude of entitlement? And are you thinking you're better than others? All this stuff exists, may come up in your artist journey or music journey or just professional career in general. These are human like instincts that come up in our lives, but being aware of that is really important and will be very important as you begin and or continue your journey. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind, and I'll keep coming back to that. Another thing that's very important: everything is a prerequisite for the next thing. Um, this is a learning lesson that I had again, kind of early on, where it like removes your ego, or like I'm so and so and I'm such a badass musician, whatever, like I'm better than this gig or this event. I have to say, like, I can speak for myself. I'm not, no gig is below me, like there's a learning, something to learn from every gig. Of course, like if you do a gig and it's horrible and you're like, man, that gig was not that great. Okay, you have the choice not to do that specific gig again. You have that choice. First time, if it doesn't work out, it's a learning lesson and you move forward, and you're gonna get those, you're gonna get great events, you're gonna have crappy events, so everything is preparing you for the next thing. How are you going to work towards that? So always look at things as stepping stones, or blocks, or like a ladder, like you're climbing in your own journey, right? All right, so let's get into kind of like how around 2008, 9, this kind of continues from my last week's conversation. I started kind of like looking inward, playing more instruments. I was still in the corporate world, but I started doing music on the side, meaning like it was a hobby at that time, 2008 to like 2011. I worked at that current time. I worked at a university, online. I was recruiting students for online like tech programs. But on the weekends, I was playing music. I was playing guitar. I was playing with a lot of like, you name it, like I was playing, I was in the world of connecting, and we talk about relationship, I was supporting. And this kind of went into when I did leave the corporate world in 2020, I'm sorry, in 2011. But you name it, I did all kinds of gigs related to music. And so this is why I'm going to share with all this with you guys, is that as you're getting into your field of what you want to do, start preparing yourself um, for what may be possible. If you have your highest vision of like, this is what I want to do, like I want to be in this level, just great, write that down and then just start saying yes to activities that will lead you possibly towards that, or that feels good towards you. For me, it was being a musician. I played percussion, in bands. You see me here singing in the background. I'm singing with this big group of different musicians at some festival. I was playing flute, I playing guitar, um, singing along different bands in Chicago, drumming with DJs and other musicians. There's me even playing the melodica at some event. I mean, like I played a lot of instruments. I just like said yes to things because what was I doing? Was I just playing the instrument? Yes. And I was also connecting with community members and people all around the country. So as you're getting into your field, remember, keep in mind, like life is a relationship. Like who do you want to have relationships with? Who in your industry do you want to play with? If it's your local town or wherever you are, like who do you want to like engage with? Like start reaching out to them or making a splash where they reach out to you. Start meeting people in your field so you can basically like play with them. You'll start getting paid. Like you will figure out your value and you'll start charging with it. But if you think of it like a playground, like a children's playground, like who do you want to play with on the playground? And, as you get older, you can start kind of choosing like who you want to surround yourself with. So like this is a picture of me even like singing at like a local, like spiritual kind of church that we used to go to on Sundays. Like I was even involved big time with them musically. So like wherever I was, like involved with, I would see like, hey, how can I get involved musically? How can I continue my craft and my art? Basically, you're preparing yourself like for what's to come next. And sometimes you don't even know what you're preparing for. But continue preparing yourself. So one of the things I will say in the beginning, when I did leave the corporate world, what can I say like and recommend that you do as you're like growing your craft? I highly recommend, if you're able to do as you're working, if you have like an internship or whatever you do, try to see like, is there something you can do in your local town, city, that's something that's yours in a way. And yours, when I meaning like it's like your project or your event or your whether it's a small business, something that you're offering specifically. So for me in 2021, 2020, 20, I'm sorry, 20, not 2021, 2011, 2012, around that time, I was getting into the DJing and more into the music lifestyle. I started doing an event in Chicago called Club Divine. This is an event I put together. My wife was a part of it, but I pretty much produced it. It was an event like once a month where people would come and dance. There'd be DJs. This is actually a picture where I actually booked different DJs from around the country. That's DJ Drez, and that's me right here on the right side. I'm playing drums with him. And like I booked these guys from California. They were on tour and they played at my event. How cool was that? And you may have never have heard of DJ Drez, but he's another awesome musician / DJ in that kind of yoga music wellness scene. So that's a picture of me with my friend Dave. We were event producers. We were producing events all over Chicago. Yes, I was DJing, but I was also, connecting with individuals and growing my strength as a producer, as a business person, as a community leader. How and also like friendships with like other musicians and event producers around. And this, I have to say, was one of the critical ways I made a splash in Chicago. And I say made a splash, meaning like people got to know about me in Chicago in this scene because I was doing my own events. So it's like, they kind of have to know who I am. So like, that was a great way. It was like, yes, I was doing work, but it was also like really great exposure of me as an event producer / as a musician / as a DJ. So there was like many things that I was doing that led to making a bigger splash where I started getting invited to other events being like, hey, can you come and play here? Can you come to our city and do this? Can you, come on our cruise and DJ for, things like, so it's like, so one of the things people ask is like, how do I get booked at this event and that event? So a lot of times I would say is like, it doesn't matter if you're playing a small event. That's a I look kind of sad there DJing, but that's a no. I've played many small events, but then I've also played many big events where I was just like, whoa, you know, this this is blowing my mind. Like how is this? The picture on the right. How is that a yoga festival? There's probably I don't even know how many thousands of people. This is a picture of me at a Wanderlust event in Canada, and this is in Calgary, where we did a huge dance party. Um, and my friend Ian Finn, who is teaching the class there and like rocking the dance party, he's kind of emceeing it as well. But like, how is this a yoga class? Events like this like just blew my mind. And this is early on, like 2015, where I was just like, whoa, like I need to do more of this. So as I kept saying yes to these opportunities, more people started reaching out to me because I was in my power, doing what I was doing, loving what I was doing. But this is, I shared this last week, and I'll stress the importance of this for my journey. I was not specifically reaching out to all these festivals saying, hey, can you book me? Check me out. I played here, I played there. I kind of was like, saying yes to who was inviting me, going there and just rocking it as hard as I could, and had so much fun, doing that, that other folks heard and they were like, hey, like, do you want to come and, play at our event kind of thing. So this kind of went on and kept happening for years. And I have to say, like, over from 2015 to 2019, and we'll talk about 2020 here in a little bit, my income started going up significantly every year because I was playing more events. I was charging more, at the events that I was getting booked at, festivals I was going to. And that's something that also grows over time, is that um, unless you're a very well-known musician, people like, whoa, we have to have this person. In the beginning, that may not be your situation. Let's be real, that probably won't be your situation. So what you'll charge when you are more well-known, and what you charge at the beginning obviously will differ, but you definitely need to still charge something, even if it's like for a performance, if it's a couple $100 or whatever that is. You need to always charge something, and as you grow, your rates will go up, your fee will go up, your time is more valuable because you'll be wanted more in different places. And you'll have to keep this in mind if you're in tech, in production as well. Like, know your value, like know what you need to do to support yourself and your family if you're part of that. Yes, it can be a hustle, but like also know like what you need to do, so you're not just feeling like, oh god, I have to do this just to make $100. And that may happen sometimes, but be aware of that. Like, be aware of what you are charging for your time. That is a very serious conversation. And you'll feel it, like, when it's really tough, you'll feel the strain. So start figuring out like what you can honestly charge for your services. Okay, so this continued to go on for a while, and obviously when 2020 came around March, uh, we all know what happened. COVID came into play, and the entire touring industry just basically halted. It just, like, it just closed down, and I was just like, what the heck do I do? I've got all these gigs that are already, I had like probably 20, 30 gigs that were already booked from the months of like April to like June, which had to be put on hold and rescheduled. And I'm still rescheduling a lot of them. And as cities are opening up now, I'm starting to go back and do the events, and like, the way I work, I always take a deposit for my event. So if you're not familiar with that, like a deposit for an event, so say I'm doing an event and my fee is, I'm just making numbers up, but say my event fee is $5,000, right? So I always take a deposit, which is 50%. So a festival or an event, they would give me 50% of that, which would be say $2,500 in that situation. So, I was doing events, and people had paid deposits, and I was just like, wow, like people paid deposits. What do I do? So I honored that, and we're in the process of now rebooking those events. Like I said, as festivals and places are opening up, and so it's all good. People are good with that. They know we're gonna go back. The world will not be closed forever, and we will open that up. But something happened in 2020 around March, April, that kind of changed my life. And I'm so grateful that this happened. Is that so? I was touring, and this is right before COVID hit hard in the end of March. So I was in my last leg of events when I was just like, oh my God, I think these may be some of my last events this year if things actually shut down. Where I was doing an event with a yoga teacher, and she was like, hey, why don't we try something online, because she has an online community, and where I would DJ from home, and she would teach from her home, and we would be on Zoom, and her students, people who are practicing, would be all over their city, and this is a small town in Illinois, right? So we practiced, and I want to show you this video, so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. I was DJing. Basically, I'm DJing from my house in Illinois. I'm not in my house right now. Right now, if you can see my video, I'm in Florida. But this is me in my home, and we're doing events on Zoom. So take a look at this. Okay. So you're probably like, what the heck was that? But maybe I'm sure you've experienced an online event, in the year 2020. You've seen people are doing concerts on there. And so I very quickly did something that I'm so happy that I kind of figured out and just started doing on my own. So, we did these online events, and they were spectacular. I figured out how to patch my sound in, and it was a really good experience, especially if people were wearing Bluetooth headphones. And so this was about mindset, right? I had so many music friends at that time where it was there was oh my God, life is over, I'm not going to make any money. And yes, that is a route you can go. And I was just oh my God, life is difficult right now, because I wasn't able to do 60, 80, whatever gigs that I was probably going to do in 2020 around the US and North America. What was I going to do? I better figure it out quickly, because COVID was there to stay. The virus wasn't going anywhere, and more places were shutting down. So I did this whole, book a virtual event with me kind of like campaign. And, you know, I was like, wow, like I have relationships actually with people all over the country. So this is where my brain started thinking. It's like I've been doing events for years now, and I was like, wow, I have relationships created with, yoga studios and events all over the world, actually, not just the US. Like, wow, like I know a lot of people in different parts of the world. Like how I could actually work with anybody I want to right now. I didn't even have to fly anywhere. So, I still, had a fee. I did it just like I would if I was traveling. Obviously, I didn't charge as high because I didn't have to fly anywhere. There wasn't airlines, things like that. I literally had to like keep my Wi-Fi on and set up my room and do an event. But this is a quick picture where you like see like where there I am there on the top left corner. You can see me in my room in Chicago DJing, and this is a teacher from her home. You can see she's right here teaching, and I don't know, we had like anywhere between sometimes like 20 people all the way up to like 500-600 people on Zoom, doing classes in my 2020 experience. Like, so I saw a lot of different living rooms, let's just say. but in all seriousness, like I saw a lot of like different people from all over the world on Zoom as I DJ'd, and they got to listen to my music. So I went on a virtual tour, and I didn't let the virus slow me down. So it was a lot of like booking effort on my part, because I did reach out to people who I had worked with, saying and letting them know like this is what I'm doing, because it was a very new next level kind of experience. It was just like for me it was just like, okay, so this is the next level right now. Like how do I, you know how do I channel what I've learned in these past years and make it useful during a time like this, where things are not as good as it could be, and how can I, make the best of it, let's just say. So, yeah, so that has been my experience of reaching out and basically booking a lot of online events, and I am still doing that because we're not 100% back right now. So moral of this story is that yes, you can book online events, but that's not the moral. The moral of the story is that like you've got to work with what you're given in the current moment. It doesn't matter how big of a musician you've been or you think you are, whatever. Sometimes it's like it's not a fair situation, meaning like the virus was not a fair situation to the musicians and the whole music industry in general, but people had to work with it, right? Like there's no other option. You can't pay all the money in the world to like change a virus situation. You know what I mean? Um, so you got to make the best of it. You got to work with what you got, and that whole attitude of gratitude that I shared about, in the beginning, um, that was a huge thing for me in the moment. Like, how can I be thankful for this pandemic situation right now, and what can I do? So I asked myself that question, and my given circumstance was that I'm home with my family. Okay, so I get to see my daughter and my wife, and family more than ever because I'm not on the road. So hey, that's a great thing. And oh my God, we've got this thing called Wi-Fi, the internet. I can see people on Zoom just like I'm seeing you right now. We're going through YouTube or wherever this is being streamed, but we're using Zoom as a platform. I'm able to connect with whoever, anywhere. I'm super grateful for that. Um, so that was the attitude I worked with. And how did I book? Like I said, I reached out to all my contacts that I had probably worked with over the past few years, and said, this is exactly what I'm doing. All you need, I explained to them how to do it. You need Zoom, you need some AirPods, you, you need a steady internet connection, and you got to get some people there. So, you know, so 140 events later, I'm still doing them on a regular basis right now. And that is kind of like the way I'm touring right now, and slowly starting to book like real event, like in-person events again. which is, something that I'm excited by. So that's kind of like where my story kind of led. I'm going to open it up for some questions, and we'll still go into some other things, but I'm going to take a little breather and see if Tim has any questions for me or if anyone from the audience, and we'll kind of go from there. How you doing, Tim?
Doing well. Just looking at Max's question here. It says you've answered it a little bit, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What do your future plans look like coming out of COVID? Any tentative festivals, shows, or events?
Yeah, and that was Max. Okay, Max, thank you. That's great. And I asked myself that same question, to be honest. Like, what? And I'm not the only one. A lot of musicians are like, what is going to happen next? To be honest, I don't know 100%, but what I do know is that I personally love performing live with people. Like, yeah, the online thing, you can see behind me, that's actually my DJ controller, my mixer, that's my laptop stand. I usually perform from here while I've been down in Florida. So here's the cool thing. Okay. Online events are not going to go away even after we get back into touring live. This has made the online world stronger than ever. That's something actually to be grateful for as a human, like as a society, like as just like as a humanity right now, we can say, wow, our online work is stronger than ever. Our online game is super strong, like live performances online or whatever. And that's only going to get stronger. But trust me, like 2020 into 2021, it's probably been an exponential increase on how much. So that's a good thing. So keep that in the back of your mind. And while that is strong, we will start going back into live events. Like I've got an event in Bonita Springs, Florida this Sunday coming up. And it's it's very COVID friendly, meaning like people are supposed to be socially distant and there's only a capacity of people. Events will come back into play depending on geography or like where you were at and in the city's requirements. There may be caps, like the number of like people that can be at the event, that will be monitored or not monitored depending on where you are. So we will be going back into events very soon. I feel a no. I've got, I think, 8 to 10 events in June coming up this summer. From a couple of festivals to smaller gatherings, 50, 100 people type thing, all with the kind of events I showed you some of the video for. So that is my outlook, and I want to continue into that.
Yeah, I'm starting to see things book in for mostly July and August at this point.
Absolutely.
Our state's going to open up after July 4th, but August is looking like it is going to be hopping. Double booked all over the place already, so it should be exciting.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I think the major theme today is one that has run throughout our different classes actually, and that's networking.
Yes.
Is really kind of the basis of this industry, and no matter which side of the desk you're on. So it's really interesting to see that come up time and again.
Yeah. Is there another question? If there is, and I can speak a little bit more about the networking element, but
not at this time, but we've got it open for any.
So about networking in general, this goes back to that first quote, which I wrote, is like, life is relationship. And when you're networking, everything is relationship, and something for you to be aware of is that whether it's an organization or a person or another band or whatever it is, like you have to be like consciously aware of what the relationship and energy you're holding within yourself towards that organization, person, or because that is your experience. Okay. So as you're in the industry, you will constantly be working with different types of people, different organizations, different teams, different groups. So it's always changing. So being aware of like what rises up in you, whether you're like, I hate the way this person does this, or like, I can't believe she's doing that, or like, start becoming aware of what's rising up in you as an individual when certain person does something, because instead of sometimes like pointing the finger and just like blaming, like, oh, this is this person's fault. It may be their fault. I don't know what this, I'm just saying, like, but be reflective around like how much you can be of like good service or maybe help that situation, because it's actually very easy to make enemies. Okay, enemies in the way where you're like friend or foe, or like, you know, someone you support or you like or don't like. And energy is felt with, even without saying anything. So how you deal with people, the energy you take, people can feel that. So as you're networking, be really authentic with yourself around how and why you want to work with certain people, and be as real as you can around that, at least with yourself first. And then, of course, um, because they will, like, most likely people will know, like, energetically, like, oh, this person's just trying to use me. I feel like, oh, they're just trying to do this. Or like, hey, this person's a very genuinely authentic, awesome person, and I'd love to have them on my team, you know? So be aware of like what your intentions are. At least be honest with yourself from the get-go, and then as honest as you can as you express it, you know, with other people, because that's you never know where people end up. Okay, so here's an example I'll just share, is that, like, you know, I've seen this over and over. You know, you work at a festival or you're playing music at a festival, and some person who's just like checking people in, it may seem like, hey, they're checking people in, they're not, it's not that they don't have that big of a role, you know, to play. But that doesn't mean that that person, that he or she's going to be in that role forever. Okay, I've done some roles in my career path where I was, you know, like saying hi to people at a yoga studio at 6 a.m. and I was registering them for their class. I just did this for like a month because I needed a job, you know, back in 20, I think 11. And I was figuring stuff out. And my friend, who was a studio owner, was like, hey, I got a spot for you. It's Saturday morning at 6 a.m. You know, I was like, okay, great. I need some work. I'll take it, you know. But, you know, I didn't do that forever. But like sometimes those roles feel like, you know, as a musician, feels like you have to be nice to people, okay, no matter who it is. And keep that in mind, you know, like the person who's valeting your car may be a big time manager at the bar who's booking people, you know, next year. I'm just saying, like, always be on, like, genuinely courteous to people, and like regardless, and try to help rather than like harm kind of situation, like,
100%.
you know. You know, like,
100%.
and in the music world, like, attitudes come up, you know, all this stuff comes up for people. So just, I mean, know that they might be your boss one day, you know, and then
Well, and I've worked with some, you know, the best event producers in the country who enjoyed being on that front line just to kind of see, you know, what their clientele was saying, you know, and taking tickets, or, you know, dealing, you know, they wouldn't introduce themselves as who they were, but they would be right there interacting with talent or with, you know, attendees, and
yep.
gathering information that made big decisions, you know. So absolutely. And these viewers are going to think that I prompted you, because seriously, authenticity is the other theme that has run
Oh.
through these classes, you know. And it's like
Well,
being your authentic self. Trust me, I did not groom each and every one of these speakers to say the same things about networking and authenticity. It's just
that's
is what
funny.
it is. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it really is the key to success, though, is being true to yourself and presenting that, and being present in the moment with people.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Undercover Boss. I don't know if you've ever seen
Yeah,
that show. It's kind of
absolutely, absolutely.
like, you know, that's like, how would you act, like, you know, it's like, yeah, we all want to be nice people, but sometimes like people are real a-holes to one another, and we've all seen it. Like, attitudes come up, egos come up. So like, imagine you're on a TV show, like, how would you behave? You know, most people when most people, when they're monitored, behave a little bit differently, studies have shown, than not. Like, so if you are like being monitored and you're in a really difficult situation where like people are watching, like, imagine that. And like, you're probably not going to be an a-hole as much, maybe, I don't know, but just like just think about that situation and like keep
Right.
that in mind. But like, hey, you could be speaking to a boss here, so so anyways.
Another question,
Yes.
another one from Max actually, but
Okay.
back to your touring conversation in the first class. What was something that you learned on tour that you will always remember for future tours?
Oh my goodness. You know what? Great, great question. And this is something I have written in my notes. Okay, so if you're a producer or a performer or musician artist, one of the things that I, started doing and sometimes fell off is like collecting people's information, meaning whoever's at your show, try to come up with some way so you can stay in touch with um, the participants or the fans or whoever, however you can. Social media is great, but it's not enough. Email is still some of the best ways to stay in touch with people. So starting 2013, 2012, I would give away music. Tim has seen me at Wanderers Festivals jumping on a microphone and saying, I've got a free gift for you. I am sharing my entire playlist from today's experience. If you want it, sign up here in the clipboard. Or I even went as to setting up a service where people could just text, a number, from their phone wherever they were, and they would send me their email, and then I would send them a gift of some sort. So if something I could say, like to anybody out there that's going, especially into the performance world, start growing your network from, it doesn't matter if it's a first event and there's 5 people there, get their emails. Okay, figure out a way to give them something of value, okay, and get their information so you can start connecting with them, hopefully forever, until they either unsubscribe or you end up in their junk box, junk inbox, and they don't see your email, which happens. But figure out ways to keep those relationships. Again, you're with your fan, it's a relationship. With followers, it's a relationship. It's obviously more difficult to, have a good relationship with sometimes thousands of people, but like it may not be intimate, let's just say, but like you can have a relationship with them over, hey, I've got new music, or I'm touring, this is what's going on, I'm doing this thing, I've got this online program, whatever it is. If they don't want to hear from you, it takes them probably 2 seconds to unsubscribe and they can be on their way. But get their emails, and then in order to get that, figure out a way, something you can offer them, that they'll want to give you their information to stay connected. There's one other thing actually I want to talk about that's very important that I wish I had started doing earlier. I started doing this around 2016, I think 2017 maybe, but I should have like starting 20, as soon as I had it. But it was basically merchandise. So I was touring for a while and I didn't really have anything to sell. And you would think it's just a given that you have like, whatever your like t-shirts or tanks or whatever you're selling, but it's not a given. A lot of people are not, fully up to what it takes to get into merchandising. Obviously, we're in a world where we're not selling CDs as much or at all. I stopped making CDs back in 2017 because I realized no one was buying CDs. So I started selling USB thumb drives with music on it. And again, things like digital streaming, that started dying out. But then I got even more creative and said, all right, I'm going to put music on here and playlist that's not available anywhere else. So it's like something that they'll want. $20. Here's sell a USB drive for $20. It's got some music or performance that they can't find anywhere else, something rare. But just start selling merchandise if you're getting into, touring, t-shirts, tanks, whatever that is. Do that for yourself. Hopefully those are 2 things that I think are very important in the touring world. Get their info, sell some merchandise, and obviously do an amazing performance so you get invited back to do it again.
You got that right. Right on. Well, thanks, Taz. It was another great day.
Yeah. If you guys have if any questions come up between now and next week, please message Tim, or you can, email myself as well. Let's see what are we getting into next week, Tim? We are
I think
Let's give
it's
a little.
oh geez,
I got it here.
spot
Let's see.
here.
So class 3. So next today we talked a little bit about the business element, how relationship is so important, and things like that. Of course, there's a lot more nitty gritty on like how to set up contracts for yourself, and I'm happy to like talk about it. I mean, we've got a little bit of time. I'm happy to go into more details if we want to, but that stuff gets very particular and specific. But if you have a question like that, please message us, and I'm happy to go into it next week. But next week, it looks like we're going to go into elements of music production. Um, I'm a multi instrumentalist. I use Ableton Live to produce music. Now, I've written over 600 songs and actually released over 400 of them since 2014. And so, how did all that happen? Like, like, what are some good practices around that? A lot of you that are watching and in these programs will be producing music. So we'll talk about different programs that I highly recommend and different practices around how to be prolific in your genre and world. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can be creative and produce a lot of stuff, and how I've collaborated with a lot of different producers and artists throughout my past 10 years of doing all this, because a lot of work I've done has been through collaboration and teamwork, which is super important. So we'll get into stuff like that. I highly encourage you to bring any of your tech questions if you have any around music production. I'm happy to jump into any of that, and we'll rock and roll from there.
Sounds great, Taz. Well, thanks again, and looking forward to next week's class. See you
Awesome.
then.